has arranged this entire program, a special Yom HaShoah program and presentation. And I want to thank Henry for this and Yaffa for coming on as well. Henry?
Good afternoon, everybody. Last night, we started Yom HaShoah to remember the various people, the 6 million people who died in the Shoah. And we're really grateful to Rabbi Goldthrift as well for organizing and speaking to Rabbi Wein. And we're grateful to Rabbi Wein for speaking to us and giving that very meaningful talk that he did last night. Also, grateful to Pessi Kraus, who we've known for many, many years as a member of our community, but had no idea of her background story. And we're grateful to Pessi, grateful to you for sharing that with our community, because there were really so many of us in the community who, first of all, know about the Shoah, but also who have members of the family who unfortunately perished in the Shoah. I think virtually everybody in the shul could trace someone who has suffered in the camps or who unfortunately perished. This afternoon, I by chance happened to listen to a testimony, an interview with Michael Goldman Gilad, who was actually one of the witnesses at the Eichmann trial in 1960. And it was an absolutely amazing interview, what he went through in the camps. And afterwards, he was actually the police officer at the trial, sitting next to Hausner, who was the prosecuting attorney. But that's not what we're here for today. We're here to listen to Yaffa Silververg. She became a member of our shul about 1.5 years ago when she finally came to live here in Israel. She was originally born in Lukov, which is just south of Warsaw. She didn't have any siblings. She was the first child of the family, and she was born in the ghetto. She was born in the ghetto there. And unfortunately, her mother died when she was 2 months old because of one of the illnesses. Pardon? One of the illnesses in the ghetto. And she eventually came in.
I will.
Yaffa, just a minute. I'll bring you in a minute. Just a minute. And she eventually also she came to Israel and eventually managed to get to America, and she's going to tell us her story herself. And I would now like to bring in Yaffa to begin her story. So please, can we all watch Yaffa now? Yaffa, it's all yours.
We're not seeing
Not on right now.
Yaffa, if you could please, on the bottom left corner, it says a video option. If you could please turn on your video so we could see you like we did the other day.
I don't. Where do I?
On the bottom left, or in this case, it might be the bottom right. I'm not sure.
No, bottom left. There we are.
There we see you. We see you now.
You see me now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you and see you.
Yeah, okay, terrific. Okay. With the sound. Okay, can you hear me?
Right?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, Yaffa. Carry on.
Can't see you.
Never mind. Yaffa, just carry on.
I should be here now. Okay. According to Professor Wagner from the Hebrew University, the mercy of strangers, there's rescuing of Jewish children in Poland during World War II. There were about Jewish children at the age, and only 28,000 survived. Mostly they ran with the families to Russia, Syria. but there were furthermore 5,000 who were in the ghetto throughout the whole war. Children who were in the ghetto by Christians and people. In 1945, there were only 5 of those children, and I am one of them. I was born in, first born to my mother in Hirschberg, Zichrono Livracha, in city Kov, which was south. The city because it wasn't a shtetl or a town, it was a city. They going all the way to, there were all the way to Russia, Spain, and it was a very the born on September 21, Rabbi Hashoah wealth business is going. He afraid Torah.
Yaffa, is there a place that you could go closer to the internet router in your apartment to bring the computer a little bit closer to the internet box, because it's coming in a little bit choppy and we really are excited to hear this story. I'm not sure if there's a place. I
am near the, or I don't know, it's giving me, I spoke twice already today, and different sessions, and I didn't have a problem. Can you hear me now, Rabbi?
Yes.
Can you hear, Rabbi?
Yes. It's a little bit better now. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, it's a little bit, it's a busy hour on the internet now, so therefore it's a little bit low bandwidth, but we hear you now. We're going to try to stay with you. If it comes off a little choppy, so then I'll let you know. But please continue, because we're excited to hear your story.
Okay, thank you. Sir Montefiore in London, between the two wars, invited my grandfather, Rabbi Gershon Fluk, Zichrono Livracha, to write a Sefer Torah in his court, and my Savta, Sava Zichrono Livracha, his wife, said, what? To leave the golden Medina of Poland? They had a very wealthy home with maids and everything, and it just would boggle the mind to leave Poland. And besides being a wealthy person, he had many generations of rabbinic family, and he was a man of chesed, a great tzaddik. I'll give you one example. My Savta had to give him she had to give him a white shirt every Friday when he went to the mikvah, because she knew that if a poor person came into the mikvah and he didn't have a Shabbos shirt, he would take his own shirt off. Or if somebody knocked on the door for tzedakah and he didn't have cash, he would run to a neighbor, not to let the poor go empty-handed. When I was in Israel many years later, people who heard his name couldn't believe he was a wonderful human being. And now, the ghetto. I'm born in the middle of the ghetto in Lukov, and as you know, the conditions in the ghetto were horrendous. You can't describe, you know how they were, but there was no sanitation, no food, no medication. It was dirt, the garbage was picked up, and from all this, disease came all around. Dysentery, and they died, and all kinds of plagues, like Yaffa that we have today one. And 2 weeks after my mother died of typhoid. that was there. I never knew what it meant to have a mother, I want you to know. I grew up without that feeling what it is. It's a feeling of being an orphan later. And only when my first child, my daughter, was born and the nurse in the hospital, and I felt that my heart going like a balloon from love, unconditioned love, and then I knew what a mother's was that I missed. Besides it, I looked at my daughter and I had tears in my eyes, and I said, oh, I wish I had a mother now when I gave birth so she could teach me how to be a good mother. And unfortunately, she wasn't there. And if most of you know, we had this Bible book called by Dr. Spock, and that helped me raise my children as infants, and psychology from college and everything else. So I think I did okay. Now back to the ghetto. I am living in my grandfather's house. Everybody, the whole family is, and by the age of about my grandfather Zal, that a baby is not going to survive this ghetto. They made me, and being one of the leaders of the Jewish communities in Lukov, of the him, and they knew him, and he found a family in the outskirts. They were not young, they were or whatever, and their name was Vanievsky, and they had two sons, one in a wheelchair, so well, and they had no other children or babies to take me and hide me. A certain amount to the Vanievsky, and telling me, I think of, and now this is 1942 when I'm 1 month and giving to the Christian Goyim. Shimon also has this idea of crowding in every country, in every city that he conquered. In ghettos, was mainly that like fly on the sidewalk from hunger, from disease, and they weren't falling enough and dying fast enough for him. So in 1942, and Lukov was already going to be later in 1943, Adolf Hitler, one of his advisors, and some other one, suggested that he should employ the final solution, which means all the ghetto city in Europe and transfer all the Jewish people on trains to the gas chambers to be burned, to be killed, etc. At this time, what they did is just before they rounded up all the Jews of Lukov, by now there were 10,000 Jews in this crowded ghetto, and knocked in the middle of the night at midnight with two German shepherds and Nazi SS soldiers, opened the door, and they said, you have to the people, you have a half an hour to pack one valise, one. And I want you to think for a second, the significance of one valise. These are people who lived in generation in Lukov, the Jewish people, from the 14th century. Generation of generation, probably in the same apartment, the same houses. And you know what? How can you choose what to take in one suitcase? 2 years ago, when my husband, Zichrono Livracha, passed away, Aryeh Leib Meir Cohen, I had a house, I wanted to sell it, to pack a 44-year house, and I didn't know what to do, which boxes, what do I take, what I give to tzedakah, what I give. It was a boggling decision. So how could you in a half an hour pack? Well, there was no choice, but I want to tell you another story. In the beginning of the war, the Jewish people from one city to the other city did not know what was going on, really. They were not aware of the killing, of everything that was happening, because one of Hitler, יימח שמו, decrees when he conquered Poland was to confiscate all the radios in Lukov. And luckily, my grandfather, he had a shortwave radio. He hid it very well in the basement, and people in the ghetto would come in to listen to it, and they knew what was going on from the BBC. It was a shortwave radio. So they heard the news. On top of which, by 1943, at the final solution, the Jewish population knew that they're going to their death. They were aware of it already. And therefore, when they packed one suitcase, they put some working tools. They put screwdrivers, they put some hammers, they put some pliers, things that they may need to use if they can escape and jump off the trains. But I want you to understand, just give you a picture. My father's family, everybody except one brother of my father who went to New York before the war, everybody was put on that train to Treblinka. Lukov was near Treblinka. Everybody was mounted. His parents, my grandparents, his brother, my uncle. He was a big shoichet, a big London with 2 children and a wife, his sister, and his great-grandmother, my great-grandmother. And you know what? All of them, including my father, were put on the trains and to Treblinka. On my mother's side, I had my, my mother's sister, my daughter Frida, my aunt's sister. She was 16 when they were mounting on trains. She was 14 when the war started, and they made her work with other youth in a munition factory outside the ghetto, the Germany, יימח שמם. And now, and my Savta, my grandfather, Rabbi Gershon Fluch's wife, Sarah Zichrono Livracha, they were mounted on trains. And in these trains, some of them were cattle trains, some were freight trains. The freight trains that were covered, there were windows, maybe 1 or 2 very, very high. And there were bars, metal bars across, and the people knew already what they had to do. The bars were very high, and my mother, my Aunt Frida, daughter Frida, and my father decided that they're going to jump. Well, people who jumped, I want you to know, most of them did not survive. It was a complete suicide. But people wanted so much to live that they took the chance, and they turned to my Savta in the train, in that squashy train, and they told her, we are going to jump. Why don't you jump with us? And she wasn't so old. I was the first grandchild. So she was maybe 50, maybe not. But she said to them, Kinderlach, it is written in the Torah, thou shalt not kill. And it's a big avera. I am not going to do it, because if I jump, I surely will kill myself. You Kinderlach, you are young, try to save yourself, but I'm going to where Hashem wants me to go. And she was killed in Treblinka. My father and my aunt jumped. Now I want to ask you, how do you jump a train that's going 60, 70 miles an hour in the speed? How can you jump? And even if you open the window, how can you jump? Well, here we have the genius Jewish mind, the Yiddish cop, like a genius. On top of every train, by the way, this was told by a landslide from our town who taped to Spielberg. He described those jumps. Everything I tell you right now is hearsay. I was an infant in the ghetto, but everything is true because you can't even make it up. Your imagination cannot believe it. So here, on top of every train car, there is a mercenary soldier with a machine gun. And the people inside the train car started counting how many bullets are there in the belt. And after they heard a quiet 5 minutes of quiet, they figured that he needs to reload the bullets in his belt. And at that time, they were immediately ready. The bars were removed already. One person put another person on the shoulders of a man standing, and then they pushed off the person across the window. And my father and my aunt were the lucky few that survived. They were in a ditch. My aunt said she probably had a minor concussion, and but she got up, and they both of them at different places knew what to do, because before they ended up on top of the train, by the train station at night, everybody passed word by mouth that if by chance you survive, if you will survive, please come back to the ghetto in Lukov, come on top of a roof of one building, and we'll see what we should do. So my aunt and my father, different times, they ran at night. I don't know how far and how long it took them, but they got to that rooftop, and on top of the roof, they met each other, and there were a few more survivors. And at around midnight or 1 o'clock in the night, somebody, a Jewish person from Lukov, our town, is coming. He ran from the woods, the forest, and he comes on top of the roof, and he said, "My friends, this city is Judenrein. There isn't one Jew left in Lukov. In 1947, when they mounted everybody, they destroyed the ghetto. They killed anyone who tried to escape. There were no Jews, and we are in danger to be here. You must follow me," and run into the woods and stay with the partisan over in bunkers, wherever people chose to do. So this is 1943. My father and my aunt are in the woods right now. My aunt is 16, and she is spending the rest of the war with my father in the forest of Poland, which are freezing. One outfit, one pair of boots, one coat, one skirt. I always tell my students in New York in the high school, various grades, you always cry, "Ima, I have nothing what to wear." And look what my aunt wore for 2 years. Look how she survived. Well, this moral speech doesn't last long, because after 2 weeks, they forgot about what I said. But anyway, the war is over from 1943 to 1945 after being in the forest. Now my father and my aunt are coming back to Lukov, and they're coming to the Christian family, the Goyim, the Vanievsky family, to get me back. Well, that's a story by itself. The Christian in 1943, I didn't tell you that part, that before they mounted all the Jews, they took 100 men and put them in back of the shul, and they shot them with a machine gun. In cold blood, they murdered them, and my grandfather was one of them. So the money that he paid to the Vanievsky every month stopped. So now you ask yourself, why would they keep me till 1945? They're not getting paid. Or they could have given me to the Gestapo to kill me. Or they could have given me to a monastery if they thought that they're saving a Jewish soul to become Christian, because I was definitely Christian. They baptized me. I went to church with them until the end of the war. And how do I know that? My aunt tells me the story when we were in Tel Aviv, when I was little after the war, I came to Israel. She said, every time I saw a big building, I thought it was a church. So I stood in front of Habima Theater in Tel Aviv. I kneeled down at 4 and I crossed myself. I was definitely Christian. And now the Christian don't want to give me back because they really took me in as their child. It wasn't just hiding me. If they wanted to get rid of me, they had plenty of ways to do that. They must have, and they were now my only parents that I knew. They were my parents from 7 months to 3.5 when the war is over. I didn't know any other parents, and I'm sure I was so attached to them, and here 2 strangers come, my father and my aunt, and why would I want to go with them even? I don't even know them. And the irony is that the Goyim didn't want to give me back either. So my father thought that maybe perhaps if he found something very valuable in my grandfather's house, even though we know that everything was probably ransacked and stolen, he went, and of course, all the furniture and the crystal and the silver and the big rod and the paint, everything was stolen and taken both by the German Yimach Shemam and the Polacks. It was empty. But my father and my aunt, that was her home really, went down to the basement. And my grandfather, Alav Shalom, used to make his own wine. I don't know if you realize that. There were no wineries like we have today in Israel. In every place, wonderful, beautiful, delicious wine exported to all over the world. But in those days, people who had room, they made their own wine for Shabbos, for Yom Tov, for Pesach. So there were 6 wooden barrels for wine, and for some reason my father shook them. They sounded empty, and must have been that the German, Yimach Shemam, the Nazis, the soldiers shook them and they sounded empty, and the Polacks probably felt they were empty. They left it. So my father opens the barrel of wine, and lo and behold, he finds mink pelts, pieces of mink in all those barrels of wine. And that's a very expensive commodity because the winters in Europe, in Poland, were freezing in the winter. You needed mink coats, and that's what the Streimlach come in called, and mink in the boots, etc. So my aunt and my father gather the mink. They take it to the market, they sell it for probably a very nice price. I don't know how many zlotys, maybe 20,000 or dollars. The truth again, I was a youngster and I wasn't interested in money, so I really don't know. And they come to the Goyim, the Vanievsky family, and they tell them, here, we'll give you money. And they tell them, come back tomorrow. Now, this should remind you the Pesach Haggadah, where Paro tells Moshe Rabbeinu Aharon, with the plagues, come tomorrow, and he changes his mind. So the same thing happened here. The next day, my father comes with my aunt, with money, and they said, no, they don't want to give me back. And that indicates how much they were really attached to me. And I have to tell you, I'm a mother, and all of you most likely a parent. You get attached to a child that you adopt at few months, as if it's your child. And why would you want to give the child away? I was like a toy for them. I loved to dance when I heard music. I was very, upbeat, fluffy. I didn't look like I looked like a shiksa. And why would you want to give me back? So now my father, at last resort, he doesn't know what to do. He decides to go to City Hall. And if you remember the history, the German army was conquered, crushed by the Russian from the east and the American and the British and the French army from the west, and they crushed them together. Therefore, the Russian took over Poland post-World War I in 1945, and there were Russian soldiers at City Hall. And my father, too bad I have a PowerPoint with lots of pictures. My father carried a tiny little card. It looked like a business card, a lawyer or a doctor's card, that before the war, it said Shana Tova on Hebrew on it, and in Polish, and beautiful, my gorgeous, on that little card. And my father turned the card over. I took pictures of it, and he wrote in Yiddish, my Yiddish name, Shendel Esther, when I was born, September 11, that I am a Jewish girl from a Jewish family in Lukov, and I was giving to a Christian family, Vanyevsky, and he wrote the address. And he kept that little card. I still have it, but it's yellow and torn in the corners, and he kept it in his pocket throughout the ghetto and throughout the forest underground. And when he showed this to the soldier in the City Hall, one came with him, and unfortunately, with the rifle pointing at them, the Vanyavsky family had to give me back by force. I'm sure that I cried. This was my first separation from my first family that I knew. I'm sure that I cried for many weeks because I didn't know who I'm going with even. I didn't know that I was Jewish. I didn't know what Jewish or Christian is anyway. It's 3.5. And I cried many, many days and nights. Now my father, my aunt, and I are now fugitive. We are refugees without a citizenship because the Polacks in Shibam, when the war started, they stripped all the Jews of their citizenship so Hitler can kill them. And they made it sort of easy for them, for him. We are nobody of no nationality. And therefore, now we are in Poland and we want to come all the way down to Italy, to go to Italy, to a city called Bari at the boot of Italy. And we have to cross Yugoslavia, Romania, all across Italy and come down. That took several months because we had to go at night because we would have been stopped at every border. Now we come to Bari, and in Bari, I don't know how long I'm talking, okay, half an hour. In Bari, there was a refugee camp for Holocaust survivors run by the Joint, by the Jewish Agency, and by many other organizations, federation. And we are waiting, most of us, to sail to Haifa, to Palestine, because Eretz Israel, the Medina, didn't come until 1948. It was 1945. Now, you know from history, the British, after World War I, got the mandate to rule in Palestine. And they wrote the white paper. It's not a white book, it's a pamphlet. And they wrote They were in 1939, they voted yet, not after the war, that they're limiting the immigration of young Jewish men into Palestine. They were afraid to upset the Arab population that's going to explode and attack. And I wanted to know that white paper pamphlet was auctioned in Los Angeles February a year ago. I got it in my email, the actual original white paper document that stated that. And now children and women were allowed to go faster than men, and we are in Italy. So my aunt tells my father, you know what? Why don't you stay in Italy for a while till all this commotion will be over, and I'll take your daughter as if she's mine, and I'll travel to Eretz Yisrael. And my father agreed. I was always surprised later how he agreed. It probably would have never happened with a mother, but it's okay. I cannot judge him. I wasn't there. And now my aunt and I, all the children were taken by Youth Aliyah with Henrietta Sold as head of the project to bring children and women and maybe more elderly people into Palestine. And we sail and land in Haifa, and Youth Aliyah puts us up on top of the mountain in the Galil, Kibbutz Alumot, overlooking the Kinneret. A magnificent view, I must tell you. I've been all over Lake Erie, Lake Como in Italy, Switzerland, Lake Norway with all the fjords and everything, but a view of the Galil standing on a mountain and seeing Kinneret, unbelievable. I have a painting in my house of it. So now we are put on a kibbutz, non-religious kibbutz, and they don't ask my aunt where we're going or where we want to go, but it happened to be an amazing kibbutz, a small kibbutz that started in 1933 in Perea and moved to Alumot, the other mountain, but small, about 100 families. Shimon Peretz came from that kibbutz. And my aunt, who is about 18 and a half, 19, doesn't know what to do in a kibbutz. She's not a farmer, and she lost all her high school years, 2 years in an ammunition factory and 2 years in the forest, in the underground. And now she says that she wants to go to Tel Aviv, go to night schools, study. She didn't know enough Greek. She knew some biblical and Ivrit, but not to speak. And she wanted also to work in the daytime, and that's what she did. She leaves. And again, I just met my aunt few months going through Europe. My father is in Italy, and my aunt is again another separation, and she goes to Tel Aviv. She did come to visit, but later it became impossible during the War of Independence. And now I'm alone in the kibbutz. So what do? Usually the children in the 1940s, later, till the modern time, stayed in a children's home. They ate there, they slept there, but at 4 o'clock tea time, they were taken by parents, and the parents brought them to their home, and they played game with them, they had snack. What do you mean by the parents' home? Is it a home? No, stucco building like a railroad, and you have a room and a bathroom, a room and a bathroom, a room and a bathroom for each couple, and a tiny balcony. In the front, you can have a little bit grass. So we would play on the grass. Now, I want you to know the kibbutz decided the family would adopt me. Again, I'm being adopted. How am I adopted? By this amazing family, the Leichtuk family. The mother came in the 1930s on one of the last boats from Germany with 2 parents who were doctors, a psychologist doctor, father pediatrician, and she came Palestine, and she spoke 5 on 4 instruments, sang in a choir, painted. An amazing woman. Where do you think she worked on that kibbutz? Where? She was the head of the cowshed, the Refet, this intelligent woman who read all the time. And the father, Avremele, we call them Avraham Avremele, he came with a family from Russia after the Bilus in the early 1900s to Petach Tikva, Em HaMoshavot, full of swans. He also had to be a pioneer. 10 children, very from, and the young one decided to be a chalutz. I never had the chutzpah to ask Avremele how he became a chalutz and a kibbutz. Anyway, Avremele was in charge of the chicken coop and buying material outside in the city, material for building in the kibbutz. Now, I am with them from the age of 4, and during the trips that Avremele took back and forth to bring materials, he always used to bring gifts to the children. When I came 4 and 5, there was one daughter, then Miriam, born and Esther, was in touch with the Leichtung and daughters for 60, 70 years while I lived in America for 50 years. All through lettering, they remained. And now I want you to know that when Avremele came back from all these trips of shopping for material, building material, he would bring the girls, including me, little souvenirs. What do girls like? Stickers and coloring book and crayons, etc. So one, I want to tell you, children have intuition and they understand and feeling much more than adults can really know or notice. If you ever read Chaim Ginot, Dr. Ginot, between children and parents or between children and teachers, his motto was, kids are people too. Don't talk down or insult them. So here at the age of maybe 6, I'm asking, Avremele is telling me the story 10, 15 years ago. He's asking me, I am asking him, Avremele, why did you buy a gift for me? He looks at me and I said, but I'm not your daughter. So he says, that's okay. I bring gifts for all of you and you are like my daughter. I understood at 6 that I was an orphan in Israel, growing up in Israel as an orphan. And I didn't think that anything was me because I wasn't used to it. I went around. So now, was around 1946, 1947, the Syrian and the Lebanese of rockets. They're shooting down at the kibbutz on Galil. The War of Independence started. So Aliyat Hanor, Youth Aliyah, decided it wasn't safe for me, and they pulled me away from the Leichtung family. After 2 years that I loved the kibbutz and I loved the Leichtung and all children, I am moved away to a institute, the Children Institute of Aliyat, not so pleasant. That in Hedera for 1 year. I knew school, I have to make new friends. After a year, they moved me for 3 years in Givatayim, Ramat Gan, to a home in Givatayim. And again, I need to make new friends, go to a new school. Luckily, outgoing and cheerful, but it was constantly rolling from place to place. And during those years, I would visit the kibbutz in the summertime and on Pesach and holidays. And my aunt Frida, daughter Frida, got married and had 2 children and lived with her husband on a garage Goldberg in Tel Aviv. That was a garage for Chevrolet cars, the main imported. My uncle was the watchman, the shomer there, and we lived on the premises in a small, like, little house. And I spent one summer when I'm in a kibbutz, both 10 years of my aunt after spending the summer going to the beach in Tel Aviv every day. At the end of the summer, Avremele from the kibbutz come, and both of them are asking me, Yaffa, where do you want to live? Do I want to live on a kibbutz with the Leichtung family? Do I want to live there? I ask you again, can a decision where she wants to live? And if I am already with the conscience and understanding what to do, I love my kibbutz and I love the Leichtung family, and we were so free children in the summer. We went to the vineyard, we ate grapes, all the kids from the kibbutz. We went down to Lake Kinneret and swam for hours. We could have gone to Jordan if we weren't afraid. We were so free, and we were mischievous. Turn rocks over the mountain, look for snakes, all kinds of things. And how could you tell my aunt, the closest thing to my mother's sister, that I don't want to live with her? Of course. So I stayed living with my Aunt Frida. I lived there from the age of 4 in Tel Aviv with her till 14. In between, I would visit summers, the Leichtung and the kibbutz, and I want to tell you one episode. You should understand what impression people live on you, even though I was roaming around. When I was visiting the kibbutz, one afternoon sitting on the grass, Avremele is turning to me and he says, "No, Yafale, what book did you read lately?" Oh my gosh, did I get embarrassed. I didn't read any books. My daughter Frida had no library. She had maybe Zichronot Beit David for children, nothing else. And we children didn't have anything in the 1950s. It was austerity, it was Sena. I never had a dog, I never had a birthday. We never had the shopping mall. We never had new things, but we were so happy children. We played with 5 stones off the sidewalk. We walked to the beaches on Shabbat and Gana Chayot. Kofim, the monkey zoo in Ramat Gan. We were happy children with nothing. Then nobody has anything. My aunt brought a seamstress to sew me a new outfit for Shoshana and a new outfit for Pesach and new shoes, and that was it. So now I am so embarrassed. I didn't read because Avremele is saying, did you hear of Tolstoy? Hear of Victor Hugo? You hear of Emil Zola or Dickens or Mark Twain? Whoa, how did I hear of them? Well, I never read anything like that. So I'm a determined person. I come home to my daughter Frida's house a week before the end of the summer. There's only one library in Tel Aviv. At the end, all the way by the old bus stop, the Chana Merkazit, an hour walk. And I walked an hour one way, and I read War and Peace by Tolstoy, and Les Mis, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame of Victor Hugo, and I read Hughes, and I read Tale of Two. I read and read and read. And Avremele, he shaped my personality to love to read, and he remained engraved in my heart. So even though I was an orphan and I was thrown around, I did get nourishing from good people. And I am 4 years by my aunt. In the beginning, I was like an alphabet, read good, no math, because from the homes, no one took care to see that I know how to read. But going to school in Tel Aviv, Bet Sefer Hashmonaim, near Habima. I started to excel and become a good student. I also love to dance, and I kept dancing in the street. So my aunt sent me to ballet by the most famous, there were two famous dancers in Israel, Gertrude Kraus and Mayra Batover. I studied 3 years by Gertrude Kraus and her top group already on my toes, and I thought I was going to be a ballerina. Well, did I know what I'm going to be? And now, my friends, what happened to my father? This is already 1956 already.
Yaffa, I think we need to start calling a close on this. We've been. I think we start needing to close on this.
Yeah, I'm going to close now in about 5 minutes, okay? So now, I just want to tell you, my father ended up, his brother sent them a letter, what are you waiting for your daughter in Israel? Bring her to America. And that's what happened. I am put on a boat from Haifa to sail through the ocean at 14 all by myself. And now I'm separating from my aunt and her children, the two cousins I love, and my friends and 8th grade friends are the most important thing in life. And I'm on a boat all by myself, and I don't know where I'm going. I don't know my father. I don't know English. I don't know the culture. My father remarried a stepmother who, well, I don't want to say bad on the dead, and a sister who was only 4.5. And in the daytime I played, and at nighttime I cried because leaving Israel, Yevida, you were like a traitor. People were building the country. People leaving looks like Yordim. And now I come to New York Port, and I have a reunion with a father that I don't know for 10 years. He's been in Italy, then in New York, and I only saw him for a few months going down to Bari. And when the boat lands, I hear of people are going down from the boat. I hear on a loudspeaker, Yaffa Hirschberg, please come up to the top deck. And I come up, and whoa, there are newspaper journalists, there are photographers taking pictures, a reunion of a father and a daughter after 10 years of separation of survivors of the war. I was in every English newspaper in New York. I was in every Yiddish paper in New York. I was in the movie reels for the news that played in the movie houses. And now I am in New York. Make it very short. I don't know English, but I learned through watching movies. And very quickly, I went to high school, and my father puts me in a Beis Yaakov, but it wasn't exactly in Williamsburg for me. I'm coming from Israel, and I'm full of Zionism. And as a result, I ended up in a regular high school, and I became an excellent student in English also and everything. And the last year, second year of the high school, I asked my Hebrew teacher, Mrs. Klein, that I want to continue. I don't want to forget my Hebrew, and I want to continue study Jewish subject, Tanakh, history, philosophy, etc. What can I do? So she says to me, the best school in all of United States is the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. It is a conservative school, but academically, it's like Harvard. Conservative. And she says that in the 12th year of high school, I can go Monday night, Wednesday night, in the evening from 8 to 10, and I come home at 11:30, and on Sunday from 1 to 5 or 6. Subway, an hour and a half from Brooklyn to Manhattan by subway. The next morning I get up to go to high school. At the end, in school at a seminary, survivor, we get married in 1962. We always wanted to come. We number of times to live here, but he had heart condition, unfortunately, young, and in 1990 he had a heart transplant. We bought a home here for in the 80s in Krenitz, in Tel HaShomer. Then we bought a home in Nachlaot Shavei Chesed, but we couldn't stay because of the medical situation. First, in 1990, there was the, give me a few more minutes. Henry,
Yes.
are you giving me a few minutes?
No, I think we've got to call a halt. Thank you so much. You've been absolutely...
No, but I started so late.
I know we did, but it's...
So you let me finish.
You've been nearly...
I need a concluding sentence.
We've been an hour.
Okay, we get two more minutes. Yes, Yaffa, yes, you're right. We started late, so we have just 2 more minutes to wrap it up because your story is so fascinating and so inspiring to all of us. So to wrap it up here in Eretz Yisrael, we're so excited that you live now here in Nachlaot, next to us.
There was a conference on the hidden children in 1990 in the Marriott Hotel in New York. 6 more, there were 50, 80 in the hotel, and Elie Wiesel spoke and Faxman. At the end, we sat in groups of 30, and then we were asked up, and one man got up to sum it up, and he said, I didn't want to come to the conference. I didn't want miserable, depressed people who didn't with their life. I didn't want to come. Why forced me to come? Glad I came. See myself, 30 people who aided themselves. There were all kinds of profession, they're citizens that contributing to their country, and they built beautiful families, and me too. Children, Baruch Hashem, who went to Panovich and to Lakewood and have smicha. One in Kollel in New York with 9 children and a based in and has a shul. Another one in Ramat Shlomo has smicha and he's a lawyer. And a daughter, she's Dal, and my husband. And what I did after my husband died 2 years ago, I sold the house, I told you immediately, because I want to close us to the country that raised me. I want of my, I talk for you in Yad Vashem, and I volunteered last year in a high school in Yerushalayim for girls. They came from India. I helped them learn Ivrit. So I am here to stay, and I thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry.
Yaffa, absolutely wonderful. Wonderful story. We're delighted that you're part of our community and that you're living here. And please God, for many, many more years in the future.
What?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, I want to thank Henry for arranging this. I would like to thank again Yaffa for sharing with us her fascinating story, really a fascinating and inspiring story with all its details. And it's a big schus for us that you're here with us. I'm going to unmute everybody. So if anybody wants to say thank you, this is the opportunity. This is the time.
Thank you.
Big round of applause. Big round of applause.
Thank you.
Beautiful story.
Thank you very much.
You are a hero.
Kol hakavod. Kol hakavod.
Thank you.
Standing ovation over here.
Listen to
All the luck in the world.
We'll listen to you.
Amazing, amazing. Kol hakavod.
Amazing story.
Write your story in a book.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Thank you very much.
Well, keep well and creative as you are. Just go on in life. Thank you very much. It was beautiful.
Okay, thank you very, very much. We are going to
I had 10 minutes ago.
I told you what we're gonna
There you go.
do.
Okay, just last final words, because tomorrow we're going to be meeting at 5 o'clock. I'm going to be giving a Parsha Shir. Thursday, Rabbi Wani is going to be giving a Parsha Shir. Then we meet on Erev Shabbos for the Erev Shabbos Chizuk. We're really excited about that. And thank you very much. Thank you, Yaffa, again for coming and for being with us. We very, very much appreciate it. We want to say thank you. Oh, let me unmute. Okay, sorry. Unmute all. Okay.
If you could send out corrected links to the place.
Yes, we're gonna send out links for all
To
the
each-
videos that we've been
To
taking.
each one, because it
to
gets
each
confused.
one. Yes, we're gonna send one to each one. We're gonna try to be a little bit more organized for next time. Thank you, Yaffa, again. Thank you so much. Amazing, unbelievable. Standing ovation.
I just want to
Thank you,
end
Henry, as well.
to Mrs. Silverberg. I really appreciate all the details, because I think that very often, like people from my generation, Holocaust stories and everything is really concise, and it's hard to visualize really how things went about unless you, and the way that you described the type of window in the train and the way that they would mount themselves and actually go out, and I think it really gives a much better picture to what happened when you could really visualize those technical details that I don't really think is generally described in the story. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I read this and I heard that story. He was a friend of our family. I said, that story I mustn't. Yes, Jewish man figure it out. Right. Now you learn something every day. We get a nut here.
Thank you.
Lovely girls here. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Yaffa. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Okay.
Later.